just the 6th team foul against North Carolina. Beckway in traffic, forced to adjust. Nothing comes easily against North Carolina, and they get it back.
If you're Maryland right now and they've done a decent job, you can't worry about arguing with the referee. That split second that your attention is taken away, North Carolina is rushing it up the floor.
Maryland scoreless in the last 3.5 minutes. Very rarely can you get away with that against a team as potent offensively as the Tar Heels. Leading this league in scoring, Maryland not far behind. Tar Heels averaging just a little under 90, and Maryland not that far behind. That's another one of the reasons why we thought we'd see a game that could approach 100 tonight.
But the difference has been defensively. The numbers for North Carolina scary. And a nice little stand right there, having to burn a timeout on the sideline out of bounds.
.407 remaining, and John Gilchrist has had his moments early on in the game, but again, maintaining a level. That's the issue tonight.
Well, and you know, he's got 8 points and shooting the ball pretty well, 3 of 6 from the floor. But I think the issue all season long is how does Gary Williams rate John Gilchrist's performance, and how John Gilchrist rates his own performance as a point guard.
Well, we had this discussion earlier today with Gary Williams, and by the way, I'll preface this statement by saying there are a lot of guys in the coaching profession that we all think a lot of, and I think Gary Williams would be in that group. We asked him about how do you attribute the issues with this team, particularly. He said, look, when we play well and our team gets credit, I think our players see it as individual credit. We need them to see it as a team that played well. And again, a nice look inside, and the bucket goes to Quentin Thomas.
Not a big-time scorer. So that is his 20th field goal attempt in 27 games. So he is a pass-first, pass-second, pass-third point guard.
I thought that spoke volumes when Gary told us that, Mike. And really, when you live in major metropolitan areas like this Maryland team does, there's Jones from 40 feet. That was a poor decision. McCray for a three-pointer, and he knocks it down. I mean, a lot of times the media goes to the individual as opposed to the team. And I think at times a young club will not respond as a team, as Jack Emanuel answers with a three.
Right, and you have to realize that as the team gets better and as the team is rewarded, each individual is rewarded accordingly.
Yeah. That's a double dribble as Jones was trying to make his move and slip. Timeout. 3:07 remaining. North Carolina with its largest lead of 6. That's right. Good evening. We're happy to have you with us here in College Park. All right, Mike. North Carolina leading by 6. Just over 3 minutes remaining in the opening half. Our Elone first half stat of the game, field goal shooting percentage. And North Carolina, after a tough start with turnovers, they've really gotten their act together.
Well, on the year, Tim, on the year, North Carolina shooting 50% as a team. Astounding.
It is.
That, and then you look at field goals, number of field goals assisted, and that stat, I think, are an indication of how good your point guard play is. And Raymond Felton has just been outstanding. And a lot of that you can lay at his doorstep. You've got to have finishers, but he really sets the table.
Sean May has it knocked out of bounds on the double team. He's back on the floor. Brennan is also on the deck for Maryland. Michael Brennan. There he is checking Terry. Kaner Medley. Gilchrist, who, by the way, just scored his 1,000th career point a few moments ago. Maryland's in the midst of quite a drought.
Very active defensive stand by Maryland.
With 2 on the shot clock. Felton can't hit. Needed to get it on the lid. And the foul against Marvin Williams.
And that was a great defensive sequence for Maryland. They really had North Carolina pushed out on the floor, and at the end of the clock, they forced a bad, long three by Raymond Felton instead of letting him get into the paint.
That's the second foul on Marvin Williams, and the 7th team foul for North Carolina. So Now they're in the 1-1.
Marvin Williams playing through turf toe, which he suffered against UConn. And believe me, I've had that injury that stays with you. That does not go away quickly.
By the way, speaking of that, we were discussing with Roy Williams earlier today, Jawad Williams coming back onto the floor, the situation with McCants. And he said, you know, he complained a little bit, even after the Duke game, going all the way back to early February. They played at UConn, was a little bit indifferent at that point in time. Played for 34 minutes against Virginia, and then after that, that disorder became even more difficult. He's not been able to eat, hold anything down in the last few weeks.
This is more a thing of energy being an issue. I mean, he can't even go through a whole practice, let alone play. And it doesn't sound like it's anything that's going to come back quickly.
Yeah. That tip in by Manuel. It's at 40-34. Gilchrist to McCray. One and done for the most part. North Carolina really blocking out the last few minutes. Carey, pass Brennan, gives it up to May.
Nice interior passing. Sean May does a nice job inside. We talked about his ability to catch. He made himself available as a receiver on the drive.
Gary Williams is livid with the lack of defensive help.
Here's the look inside, and see that drive. Sean May able to make up a lot of room without even putting the ball on the floor.
May has 12 points and 6 rebounds. And you see the numbers, Mike, inside the painted area. North Carolina doubling up on Maryland. Felton really doing a nice job of feeding and fanning the big people.
You know, it's incredible. You think about the players who have played there. In the history of the program, only 12 players in Carolina history have averaged a double-double. And that's what Sean May's trying to finish up right now.
McCray for 3. Boy, he has been the constant, hasn't he?
And even with Manuel, I mean, Manuel's the fireman. Whoever's hot, that's what they send him on. And that was just almost unguardable. It was so far out.
Poor pass by Noel leads to a turnover. McCray. Well, the rim got in the way that time as he tried to go finger roll.
Tim, fundamentally, you've got to come in from the side and use the backboard. How many times do you see a player trying to go right over the front and leave it up short?
Jawad Williams, just all night long. Find the spot, move to it, and he is absolutely going to convert. 12 in the game for Jawad Williams.
And he's a guy who's really expanded his three-point game. He can knock down the jump shot, also very reliable in the post, tough to guard.
Harrison can't hit. Manuel pulls it down, and North Carolina beginning to extend. It looks remarkably similar to that first game in Chapel Hill.
They went on that run to close it out, and not quite as bad here. And Maryland certainly within distance, only 8 points.
And you just get a feeling that the Tar Heels are not having to work nearly as hard to score as Maryland. Nice defensive play again by McCray. Out of bounds off him. Tar Heels will trigger it in.
See the two-man game right here. You see Felton coming off, and then the flare out on the jump shot. It's just tough to recover to defensively. Jawad Williams goes so far wide that the rotation can't get to him.
Well, the Tar Heels commit their 7th turnover, but only their 2nd really in the last 12 minutes. They had 5 very quick turnovers.
And that's one you can live with. It goes out of bounds. You get a chance to set your defense on the other end. It's one of those turnovers that lead directly to points that kill you, those that take place out front.
Gilchrist wants it. Off the back iron, McCray trying to save it. It's pulled away by Manuel. Length of the floor, Noel. Boy, remember that. And again, the floor not balanced. And Gary Williams very upset that his team was not balanced along the floor defensively.
Just the pace of the play grinds you down for North Carolina. And again, here where turnovers kill you when they happen out front like this. Nobody back in rotation. David Noel puts a punctuation mark on the first half for the Tar Heels.
A 21-8 run to close out the half. Let's go in the corridor to Dwayne Ballard. Dwayne?
senior night and your team came out, withstood that. Impressive first half.
Well, we got to do a better job getting back in defensive transition, and we can't give them so many free throws. To me, they seem like they stayed on the free throw line and didn't miss very many of them, Dwayne.
Finally, defensively, you've held them under 40% from the floor.
The last 3 or 4 minutes, we played much better job defensively.
Thank you, Coach. Let's send it to the studio and Mike Oberg.
ACC Sunday Night Hoops is presented by Staples. That was easy. And brought to you in part by Dodge. You can take life as it comes, or you can grab life by the horns. Dodge. Our score at halftime, 47. I believe you can see it right there. 47-37. Tim Brando, Mike Kaminsky, Dwayne Ballin, happy to have you with us. And for Gary Williams, the plight very similar to the last time these two teams met. It was 47-34 in Chapel Hill.
Well, and it's the same script, too. The first 13 minutes or so, Maryland was very competitive. And you see here that John Gilchrist, their point guard, got him off early. He had 8 points in the first 20 minutes. But the big story for Maryland, Chris McCray, 16 points, perfect, 4 of 4 from behind the arc. However, the last 7 minutes, North Carolina goes on a run. Jawad Williams spreading the defense down, knocks down that jump shot. He has 12 points. Raymond Felton, the look ahead. David Noel with the finish at the half, and it is a 10-point spread. The number right there, you can't let a team come into your building and shoot 52%. And, you know, Carolina is Carolina, but you know they've got to be more disruptive defensively.
Your Elon halftime stats and the number of bench points for North Carolina, that's not uncommon, but the points in the paint just really jump out at you. Sean May and Jawad Williams had their way. 24 points between them. And were it not for the play of Chris McCray, 16 points, 4 of 4 from downtown, Maryland would be in a world of hurt going into the second half. That's a walk by North Carolina. Look at the rest of the team versus what McCray has done.
Well, and the guy they're really missing is Travis Garrison. He, over his last 4 games, averaging 16 points and 8 rebounds per attempt. He did not score in the first half and only 2 rebounds. They need him to step up.
Perhaps that man, too, Kaner Medley. Gist the follow. Gist gives them an extra athletic body in the painted area.
Well, and remember, too, that they played a lot of the first half with Mike Brennan on the floor, a guy who doesn't get a lot of big minutes. I mean, it's a senior night. You're not going to take that away from him, but, you know, you're out of your normal rhythm.
Manuel right past Kaner Medley. Failed to finish, but there's Sean May on the block. And the reach-in foul will go against Maryland. A moment ago, Dwayne Ballin talked with Gary Williams. Right, Dwayne?
Yeah, I did, Tim. And Gary was pretty intense in the locker room, and I asked him about defensive intensity, and he was very pointed with me. He said, listen, my team is playing very hard. You make sure that you point that out. My guys are playing hard. We do need to finish some plays. We haven't gotten all the calls we wanted, but my guys are playing hard, and he didn't want to hear anything about them lacking in intensity. It was interesting how serious he was about that.
Yeah, and I can understand that. He's been, you know, on them all week about giving him effort on the defensive end of the floor. I don't know that the breakdown at the end of the half had anything to do with effort, but clearly he didn't like the fact that Noel had an easy slam to close out the half because the floor was not balanced.
And where the turnover takes place, and they're talking about the number 2 team in the country, and your margin for error against them is very minimal.
Scott got the foul. That's his second. Team's first foul of the second half. Garrison, that's a reach-in foul against May.
See, that's exactly what Travis Garrison needs to do. You need to put pressure on Sean May, make him defend you. Now, Garrison is not a low-post player, but he does have the ability, Tim, to put the ball on the floor, and he drew contact in the foul on the play.
Second on the team, Travis Garrison.
Garrison, one of those players that they just know they can get more from. He's more of a face-up player. I think a lot of people wanted to make him a post-up variety, similar to that of a Jamar Smith, and that's just not his game. It's one of the two, and it's 49-40. Gist is now checking Jawad Williams. He certainly had his way from the perimeter. Manuel blowing by Kaner Medley, but is fouled on the deck. It'll go against Nick Kaner Medley.
We talk all year about Jack Emanuel not needing the ball to perform well, and he is known as a primary defender. But I think in this instance, trying to put some pressure on Kaner Medley, make him defend and get him in foul trouble. He's been very active looking for his own drive here in the first minute and a half.
Jack Emanuel, I think, understands with Rashad McCants not available that he's got to be a bit more assertive on the offensive end of the floor. In fact, I believe all the heels seem to be playing that way. That's a goaltending that where it really was not needed. We're not even sure that that ball would have gotten off of the front iron.
That's just a freshman being a little over aggressive, and you know what, you can't scold him if you're Gary Williams. You know, it's a bad judgment play, but at least his motor's running, Tim, and that's again talking about the effort that Gary Williams talked about at halftime.
Kaner Medley a drive. Williams rips it out of there.
Very few second chance opportunities for Maryland.
Jawad Williams sets the pick. Felton takes advantage. Off the front iron, Gist pulls it down, and he's fouled by Manuel. That's number 2 on Jackie. Bickway comes into the game now for the Terrapins, and Garrison sits down. We talk so often, Mike, about how important the first 5 minutes and the last 5 minutes of a half may be. North Carolina clearly won the last 5 minutes of the first half. Very important that Maryland answer here. Kaner Medley with a tray. 51-43.
It's still basically it's McCray, Gilchrist, and Kaner Medley doing all of the scoring for Maryland right now. Nobody else has stepped up, but they needed that 3.
May over a Bickway. Failed to finish. I believe he lost it on the way up.
It just the ball slipped out of his hands. He just has a decided strength advantage against the Bickway.
No look inside to a Bickway from Gilchrist.
Little lapse as Sean May was lost coming back defensively. You got to identify where your man is, and if there is an advantage that a Bickway has, it's speed up and down the floor.
Felton. Manuel on the offensive glass. Ball's on the deck. Jawad Williams with the garbage deuce. Every loose ball down low the Tar Heels front line gets. A Bickway. Not there. Disturbed mightily by May, and again, open dunk on the other end of the floor.
And that's what a bad shot gets you to. When you surprise your teammates like that, there's no defensive balance at all, and just an easy breakout for North Carolina.
Jawad with 16, and just like that, North Carolina's lead back to 10. And Gary Williams wants a timeout.
The Terrapins call timeout.
We talked a little bit about that with Gary Williams earlier today. Those loose ball situations. Jawad Williams sprinting for the slam. One of the most respected reporters is back in head-to-head with James Brown. JB visits with defending NASCAR champion Kurt Busch, examines the recent poker craze. All of that coming up on head-to-head tomorrow at 9. 55-45. There's the sign we were talking about. Pretend they're Duke. And especially now, 10-point lead again for North Carolina, 55-45. Going to take a look at that last play that you were talking about.
Well, you see right here, hold right here. You see Sean May. He's got the sight line on a Bickway who's behind him, but then as the play unfolds, he'll turn and a Bickway just out sprints him into the paint area. You see right there, a little bit of a lost vision, and a Bickway, nice hustle, never giving up on the play. Good look inside, and that gets you 2 points. Nice to see him rewarded for running the floor.
Bickway, sophomore from Carson, California, outstanding shot blocker. They need he and Gist to really provide a spark inside, because it has just been all North Carolina along the front line, and now both Jawad Williams and Sean May are out of the game.
Talked about it. It looked like Carolina was on the verge of really trying to break things open. And this is a very critical time for Maryland. Now with those players out, they've got a chance to narrow the gap.
Terry, Noel, and Marvin Williams are now on the floor for North Carolina. And there's McCray with a steal. Kaner Medley, a leaner, does not fall. Once again, Terry takes it down and gives it up.
Well, and North Carolina had numbers back. I think Kaner Medley tried to force something that wasn't there.
Noel. very strong to the basket.
And see, that's what hurts against North Carolina. You get a turnover, you have a chance to score, you miss that opportunity, and they turn it into 2 points.
Foul committed by Terry. 15:32 remaining here in the second half. And the Heels still hold a 10-point cushion. North Carolina by 10 here on Oscar night. We're celebrating ourselves here on ACC Sunday Night Hoops with a Foxy. How about the play of the year? Xavier Dowdell's winning shot against Duke. And, of course, they held off the Dukies in one of many very big wins for Seth Greenberg, who certainly is a strong candidate for Coach of the Year. And you look at the standings in the ACC, Virginia Tech right there at 7-7 with an opportunity to play their way in. I think their biggest issue is overall team losses. They need to get as many W's as possible.
And RPI well over 100 too, which is going to set them back. But Tim, that sets up, they are at Clemson on Tuesday, and that sets up a huge game with Maryland going to Virginia Tech to finish out the year.
Particularly if this score holds up.
Yep.
Terps are trying to get to 8-8 and manage to get into the NCAA tournament. Those RPIs, I think, may mean less this year than they have in the past. And but the truth of the matter is, if you're inside 50, you feel pretty good. If you're outside it, you're struggling.
Yeah, Georgia Tech kind of right on that line, although they had a huge win down in Miami.
Came from behind in the second half to get it done. Loose ball out of bounds. It will belong to the Terps. Gilchrist with only 1 field goal, 1 assist in the last 21 minutes. He was outstanding early. Yes, in traffic, stays with it over Marvin Williams.
Right, 2 talented freshmen going at it athletically down in the post, and Gist was just quicker off the floor on 3 occasions.
Marvin Williams only has 2 points tonight, and with this lineup, he needs to become more active. Is guilty of taking an extra step there. Sean May will quickly re-enter the game for North Carolina.
Well, with the lineup as it was out on the floor, Maryland could really collapse on Marvin Williams, and that's what the issue was. Now with Sean May, they've got to pay attention to him.
In a game that featured a high wire act the first 15 minutes, North Carolina ended with a strong 21-8 run at the close of the first half. To get a 10-point lead, they've maintained that through the early moments of the second half. North Carolina with a lead by 8. Gist the rebound. Manuel can't come up with it. Gilchrist alley-ooping for Gist inside.
Well, once again, Maryland's bigs beating North Carolina down the floor. How about Gist? He gets the rebound defensively and then out-sprints everybody for the layup.
He has 8. Marvin Williams, another freshman, trying to return to sender. And with the ball fake, he's able to get a Beckway airborne, and he picks up the foul.
Here's the look, and it just, I think Gist's ability to catch the ball, that was a tough catch going away from the play. He was running out of real estate on the play. Well, those long sideline jump shots can get you into trouble and spread you out.
And the speed down the floor was also impressive for the freshman.
Well, he and Beckway have both made plays like that in this half.
Jones coming back onto the floor. Mike Jones, the sophomore from Massachusetts. They need some offensive punch from the perimeter, and he can deliver that. Beckway sits down. Kenny has picked up a number of fouls early on. He's got 3 and sits with 14-14 remaining in the game. And Marvin Williams just plays within himself. I mean, this is a star talent that has really adopted the team concept. And tonight, it's all about Jawad Williams and really, to some extent, Noel. Noel's come in and really delivered on both ends of the floor.
Quality bench points, rebounds, assists. Nice stat line for him in this game.
Gainer Medley lost the dribble. Fortunate that Jones came up with it. Yes, a little duck under against May, and Sean won that duel. Noel leads Finds it for Manuel.
Boy, what a nice break. That was a great decision by David Noel. Gave Manuel a second count to get in position to receive the pass.
And again, Gary Williams calls a timeout, and one of those shock treatment defensive transition TOs he's taken.
Here's the break without Raymond Felton involved in it. Just nice feel for the basketball. The dribble to let Kaner Medley go flying by. That break is such a lethal weapon for North Carolina.
13 transition points. When you think about the outstanding newcomer that Marvin Williams is and how much depth and talent Roy has on his floor, there's no question about that. But they've not had one ACC Player of the Week. We asked Roy Williams about it.
It is flattering in some ways because we do talk so much about team, but I'm also one of those guys that always says that the teams that win, their players get the awards and rewards. And so it is a little unusual with that because we've had some pretty good performances. You know, and it's directly in contrast. I hear all those people say they've got the best talent in America, but we've never had anybody talented enough to be the Player of the Week.
It is an outstanding point, and to be honest with you, I was surprised when told that that was in fact the case after looking at it. McCray comes in and quickly gets the deuce. He's carried this team offensively. He has 18.
Well, you know, how many times is it that the great coaches, or considered great coaches, never get Coach of the Year?
Yeah.
You know, there's always a better story. I mean, Seth Greenberg may get it this year, and, you know, and here Roy Williams probably going to run the table and win the conference.
May over Gist, count it, and the foul. See where the Tar Heels have always ranked in the NCAA annals and points per game, scoring margin. That I'd say that's good coaching, wouldn't you?
But you know what? that rarely translates into national championships, and that's the slope. You know, it's been a long time since the leading scoring team in the nation has won it all. But I think the difference for this team is they're defending so much better than they did last year.
And by the way, we all know that's the one thing missing on Roy Williams' resume. Jones rejected by May.
Boy, Sean May just quietly taking control of this game.
And Noel is fouled inside.
Here's the look. Mike Jones, to his credit, trying to make something happen, and he has to go not only past Noel, who probably set up that block for Sean May. May comes in and cleans it up and gets the double dip on the stat line with the block and the rebound.
Jones got the foul for Maryland. And again, the lead is still 10. With the pace of the game, you really begin to think that Maryland is fortunate that it's only 10. Gist, a face-up shot over May, not there.
Right, you know, John Gilchrist is trying to get his team involved, but you sense that he's going to start looking for his own shot pretty soon.
North Carolina in firm control of this one. They have been since late in the first half. Still maintain a 10-point lead with 12 and a half remaining. Raymond Felton picks up that foul, and it'll go the other way. Tim Brando alongside Mike Jaminski and Dwayne Ballin roaming the sidelines for us. ECC Sunday Night Hoops presented by Staples. McCray searching for the foul, and he gets it from Manuel.
Well, you will see one of the best free throw shooters in the nation now step up to the line. That's the thing I like for, you know, you look at McCray, he only averages 3 free throw attempts a game.
Well, I believe we're going to have the officials take a look at the monitor to see if, in fact, that was a 3-point attempt by McCray rather than a 2-point attempt, which is what Ray Natili ruled.
And the reason why, because McCray was really jumping forward on that play, and it's your takeoff point.
I think he may need a different angle besides that one.
It looked like his right toe was over the line, but tough to see through the stanchion.
And this will be a difficult angle as well. And again, they've got to be able to see something a lot more defining than that.
Yeah, that's a 2.
That's a 2. He's inside.
Right foot just over the line.
That's the one you want right there. It was a good call. It's a 2-shot violation. And by the way, without the duck under, he doesn't get the foul. He clearly was looking for the shot and the foul.
Right, and Manuel doesn't usually make that type of mistake where he goes flying up. That McCray put a nice head fake on him and got him off his feet.
Junior from Capitol Heights, Maryland, Chris McCray.
Hands up, baby. Come on, Blue.
Chris has a cousin, Charlie Bell, who's a freshman playing at Loyola of Maryland. And so it's been in the family. They got the basketball mix going on. He gets both.
94% from the line. As I say, you like to see him in a position, maybe gets into the low block, posts up, and uses those moves to get himself to the free throw line a little more frequently. That being said, 20 points on the evening.
Travis Garrison commits the foul. And the thing about McCray you have to love is when you talk to him or you read what he has to say in newspapers and periodicals about the Maryland situation, he's quick to point out that Gary Williams is absolutely right. They've got to mesh as a team. Foul spotted underneath. And Gary Williams is beside himself. Goes against Jones, it appears. His second.
Fouls on 23, Mike Jones. His second. Team 7.
It was a push against Jawad Williams.
Jawad Williams.
And that's the frustrating thing. Again, if you're Maryland, you've been making these little runs, and they get bailed out with a miss on the one-on-one. But they'll make a play and get it down to 6, and then that lead will expand back up to 10.
Jones for three. He was a highly heralded high school talent, largely because of just that. An outstanding offensive player.
Well, it was the swing of the basketball that set him up too, Tim. And Sean May a little reluctant to come out and get a hand up on him. That's the best look that Jones has had this evening.
Williams. Jones trying to keep it alive and does. Look at May on the deck. Boy, the effort from the big fella, outstanding. Roy Williams disagrees with Ray Natilli's call, and Maryland's got it.
Sterling Ledbetter put some skin on the floor.
May puts it on the deck. And the Terps will have it when we come back.
North Carolina leads Maryland 63-58 here on ACC Sunday Night Hoops. In 1965-66 season, history was made in the ACC when Billy Jones joined the Maryland Terrapins. He became the first African-American player in the history of the ACC in basketball. He is here tonight as an honorary captain of the Terrapins. Mr. Jones, can you begin to tell us what it was like for you in that historic season?
Well, it was a case where basketball is important to me, and much like high school, you're doing things that haven't been done before, and it was challenging. But Gary Williams, Gary Ward, Joe Harrington made life very easy for me, and it was a great season. And I'm glad I did what we did.
Well, your Terrapins are responding right now. You mentioned that Gary Williams was your teammate.
Yes.
What did it mean to have teammates like him that would stick by you?
Gary, and again, it's nice to know people have your back. Gary was always there. He's still there. He grabbed me tonight, got me on the bench. I told my wife I would not sit on the bench this year, but Gary got me to sit on the bench, and we're going to get this thing yet.
Thank you. Billy Jones, the first African-American player in the history of the ACC. Guys?
All right, that's great to hear from him. And there's always been a tremendous amount of history surrounding the ACC here at Maryland. And there's McCray. The 8-0 run ended when Jawad Williams hit the shot, but the Terrapins clearly making their move.
Now, Mike Jones coming in, giving a big lift off of the bench, and nice curl play. They've got to respect McCray's jump shooting ability, and that allowed him to curl around the screen and get the layup.
Inside they go to May, and Garrison once again will pick up the foul.
There's a look inside. Just an easy catch for Sean May. If you can get it with 2 feet in the paint, normally you're going to finish.
Maryland making a strong move with an 8-0 run. Has clawed to within 2 of the second-ranked Tar Heels. Just over 10 minutes remaining. Williams. Marvin Williams trying to corral it. Out of bounds, last touch by Jack Emanuel. Tim Brando, Mike Jaminski, Dwayne Ballin here in College Park, Maryland. The Terrapins trying to solidify an NCAA bid with a victory against the mighty Tar Heels. Ledbetter, a runner, counter, and we are tied. The last tie was at 26, with plenty of time remaining in the first half.
The bench was not a factor for Maryland in the first half. They've come to play here in the second half. Sterling Ledbetter, I just don't know that Raymond Felton, lack of respect or whatever, lost him completely on that play.
Jones rejected that shot by Scott. Jones and Gist have given a lot of energy, Mike, to the Maryland Terrapins in the second half. One freshman and a sophomore. Felton comes up empty. Manuel trying to save it. Out of bounds for the Terrapins. And Roy Williams still a little concerned about Jackie Manuel.
That was a tough shot. There's still time left on the clock. Felton trying to elevate his team offensively.
North Carolina in control much of this ACC season. Kaner Medley too strong. Felton with a quick outlet. Melvin Scott going deep. Tries to save it. Out of bounds. Last touch by Raymond Felton, and Maryland's got it.
There's some questionable decisions by North Carolina with the basketball over this last stretch. They have not been very efficient on the offensive end.
David Noel coming on the floor. Crowd responds to the play of Ledbetter as Gilchrist comes back out. See the turnover story. North Carolina uncharacteristically turning it over the last few times down. Garrison over Williams. Loose ball, Marvin Williams pulls it down.
Right, it has just not been there offensively for Travis Garrison in this game. He and Ebekwe both have really struggled.
Whereas Gist and Jones have been difference makers. Noel with the dump down to Marvin Williams. He fouled from the back by Jones.
Well, and an unnecessary foul. I thought that Travis Garrison had Marvin Williams under control defensively. It would have been a tough shot for him to make. If you're Mike Jones, you just got to find your guy and block him out or get on the board yourself.
That's 3 on Mike Jones. North Carolina, conventional wisdom is they are the strongest other than Illinois in holding on to a #1 seed for the NCAA tournament. But this is really more about, when you think about it for them, Mike, this is about flexing your muscles at this time of the year. You see what Marvin Williams has done as a freshman. Clearly the freshman of the year in this league, one would think. But this is more about where you are in the conference and maintaining a level of play going into the ACC tournament.
Well, I think more importantly, too, Roy Williams wants to see his team respond to its last true road game.
That's right.
Of the year. You know, good test going in. I mean, they will play in the ACC tournament, but everything going on is going to be neutral, and they finish up with 2 at home.
Felton with numbers. Scott for 3. Outstanding decision-making by the Tar Heels in that fast break sequence.
There's no doubt that this team will make the extra pass when necessary, and they saw that Scott was open, trusted him. He had a tough offensive night up to that.
32nd timeout with 7:58 remaining. And don't forget, it only gets better as we get closer to the finish of ACC Sunday Night Hoops. During the regular season, how about another team trying to maintain its hold on a possible #1 seeding? Wake Forest taking on North Carolina State at the RBC Center, 8 o'clock Eastern time, so note the time, a bit later than tonight, and 7 o'clock Central, 5 Pacific time.
Well, at North Carolina State, and you see Maryland, actually they've won the last 3 meetings at home against North Carolina. But for NC State, look ahead, they've got a critical game coming up at Virginia. They're sitting at 6 and 8. I think they've got to run the table to have a legitimate chance, and the road not easy for them because Wake has got plenty to play for in that game as well.
This is a time in the game when you really begin to understand matchups and what they can mean. And for the most part, with Ledbetter on the floor, along with Jones and clearly James Gist, Maryland played better basketball. And for the moment, Gilchrist is back out there along with Jones, but Travis Garrison remains. McCray has been the constant throughout the game. Jones again. He is lighting it up.
Against a pretty good defensive player, too, and David Noel, who was right in his shirt.
3 for 4 from downtown for him. Manuel gives it up. Noel rattles it home.
Gets it back. Gets that 3 back. He has the second one of the game.
Just that quickly, Gary Williams has James Gist ready to get back on the deck. Garrison working in on Williams. Again, his defense just too steady down there. Manuel, outlet to Jawad Williams. That's an offensive, well, they're going to call steps instead. Timeout, 7:14 remaining. Mr. Jones, your neighborhood is downtown tonight. More to come from College Park as Maryland makes its move on number 2, North Carolina. Get your poker face on. Beginning March 13th, the world's best players will once again gather to finally answer the question, who's the greatest poker player in the world? Find out on Poker Superstars Invitational 2, beginning March 13th. Mike Jones has been incredible. 3 of 4 from downtown and has actually played some very good defense.
Well, there's the long skip pass that gets him his first open 3, and that's the thing that really got him off. And then a shooter like that, once the spark is lit, he is seeing a big basket. 3 of 4 from behind the arc.
Loose ball, last touch by Jones, and North Carolina will have it. Those scrum situations, when they do occur, there's the line on Jones. 3 of 4 from downtown. North Carolina seems to win all of those. In traffic, that's another step situation as May took the jump stop a bit too far. Ledbetter back on the floor now. Gilchrist sits, and the way the second half has gone, Mike, I'm not surprised at all that Sterling Ledbetter's out there. Again, another loose ball situation played by North Carolina. Well,
and Gary Williams not afraid to ride the hot hand, and Ledbetter has just done a better job of running the ball flow in the second half.
That's a kicked ball by Jones, a fresh 35 for North Carolina. And the other factor here for John Gilchrist, only 1 field goal in the last 30 minutes of this game for him after a scintillating start. So it's Gist, McCray, Ledbetter, Painter Medley, and Mike Jones on the floor for Maryland. North Carolina counters with May, David Noel, Jackie Manuel, Marvin Williams, and Raymond Felton. Gist, another steal. His hands have been quicker to the ball. Ledbetter, a little stop and go, and a poor pass deflected and taken away by Noel. One of the few mistakes he's made, and Noel made them pay.
New season high for David Noel, 10 points. Only other double-figure game this year, Tim, was against Kentucky in that win.
Gist doubled, slapped away by Manuel. North Carolina clamps down defensively. That's a block, and Jackie Manuel will get to the free throw line. Jackie Manuel and David Noel with quality pilfers in the last couple of minutes.
Well, and see what happens here on this one, that Mike Jones tries to reach for it, and David Noel runs through his body and comes up with the possession. Just out-hustled and out-quick Mike Jones to the basketball.
Just as we were complimenting Ledbetter and the way he was running the offense, 4 straight turnovers committed by the Terrapins, and that leads John Gilchrist back onto the floor along with Big Way and Travis Garrison. McCray, Gist, and Ledbetter all sit down. But overall, Gary Williams has got to be really happy with the play of Gist, Jones, and Ledbetter off his bench. Mike Lonergan there, the assistant coach was Gary Williams. We should congratulate him. He was just named the new coach at Vermont. Will be taking over at the conclusion of this season.
As long time as a head coach at Catholic University, won a national championship Division II. Now he gets his chance. Always wanted to be that get his first head coaching job in D1, and they finally came.
Painter Medley unable to connect. Sean May the outlet. North Carolina's extended their lead back to 6 after Maryland had tied it at 65. May again claims it with those quality hands, but it's knocked free by a Beckway. Control to North Carolina. 6th straight double-double for Sean May. Last Tar Heel to do that, Antoine Jamison.
He's having a first-team All-ACC year, Tim, and no doubt about it, and especially his play over the last half of the season.
There are no chemistry issues with North Carolina this season. I talked with Sean a little bit about that before the game tonight. He had some wonderful things to say about the Tar Heels tradition as Manuel gets the tip in and the lead back to 8.
Those are, again, the little things that Jackie Manuel brings to you, the ability to get on the offensive glass.
Raymond Felton will pick up that foul, trying to check Gilchrist. I asked Sean May before the game tonight, I said, tell me why this team seems to have such outstanding chemistry. And he discussed a summertime golf outing that Vince Carter puts on. Antoine Jamison, George Lynch, and a few other of the veteran Tar Heels came. And he started talking to this class, this particular class of Tar Heel players. And he said, you know, you guys need to spend more time with one another off the floor as well as on, because your success and your failure as teammates will bring you closer together. And he said they did make a conscious effort this season when practice began in mid-October to do exactly that.
He talked about, and it's just completely opposed to his freshman year, how they just kind of show up and play, and that was clearly lacking.
There were cliques developing at that time, and they don't have that issue right now. And Roy Williams made them aware of it, and then when the other players came in offering their opinion, they listened. And again, May takes it strong to the hoop. Garrison having all kinds of difficulty trying to deal with Big Sean on the low block.
Well, Maryland has nobody physically who can set up with Sean May. And anytime you're a big and you can flash across the lane and get position, you're that much more difficult to defend. Any big guy on the move, you have an advantage. And he's just so good at catching the basketball and drawing contact.
Now, you know something about double-doubles for post players. It's not easy to go out there and do it 6-7 times in a row. And that's what he's done.
A very, very impressive streak. You know, he and Sheldon Williams in a similar situation have separated themselves from the other post players in the conference.
And frankly, it's what distinguishes teams in college basketball today, because it's such a guard-laden game. North Carolina by 8, 4.5 and counting. Gainer Medley leans in. A little body English, curled that one through the cylinder. Manuel trying to drive on Gainer Medley, not allowing that baseline to become open. May. There, Jawad Williams trying to keep it alive and does. His athletic ability keeps the ball in Carolina's hands.
Ryan got a killer possession too. If you're Maryland now, 3.5 minutes left, and you made a good defensive stop, and you must come up with the basketball in that instance. Now you've just given them North Carolina another possession. That's dangerous.
Alley-oop from Felton to Sean May. North Carolina 16 offensive rebounds for 21 second chance points.
Instead of cutting it to 6 and then possibly 3, they've expanded it with 8, just because of a second chance opportunity.
Gilchrist for 3. 80-75, a 2-possession game.
Haven't heard that number in a while.
It took over 32 minutes for him to get back into the scoring column. Trying to run him through a variety of screens. Gilchrist having none of it. Shot clock winding down. Felton got away from him. That's a walk. Timeout. The walking double-double did make a mistake there with an extra step. Oh, but can he deliver off the oop? Plenty of alley and a whole lot of oop. Let's Let's take a look at our Staples game summary, Mike. And without McCray, he's been the constant. They wouldn't have even been in a position to make this a close game.
And you know what? It's interesting. They've had no answer for McCray on the perimeter, and Maryland's had no answer for Sean May inside. I mean, he's on the paint in this game.
Let's take a look at our Subway hot shot of the game, and it's worth another look. No question about that.
Well, you got to talking that Sean May got lost in the defense. A great pass by Raymond Felton. And that was, you know what? That's a play that Sean May couldn't make last year. I don't think he was in shape enough to make that play with 2.5 minutes left to go in the game. And that's been the difference in him this year.
A big sequence here for Maryland offensively. Need to maintain contact as well as North Carolina handles their offense. They really need to score here. Abekwe. Jones saves it to McCray. That's who you want to have it.
How many times do you see on an offensive rebound in a scattered play, a guy steps up and makes a three, the defense is completely out of sorts.
And Mike Jones kept the ball alive to get it to McCray. Turnover by the Tar Heels. McCray is 5 of 6 from downtown. He has 25 points. Career high for him. He feels it. He and Mike Jones particularly have been the difference makers in the second half, along with James Gist, who's out there right now, number 15 for the Terrapins down low.
Well, Jones and McCray, they're matched up well with Manuel and Noel, North Carolina's 2 best perimeter defenders.
McCray leaves it deep for Jones. Oh, the iron, not only kind, generous.
And Noel got sucked in on the play, and that allowed Jones to get the good look.
Well, if Jones is the trigger key man, then you want to ride that horse the rest of the night.
Right, you know, you've got to find him, and that's what John Gilchrist has done. You've got 2 hot shooters out on the floor, in McCray and Jones. And when you have 2 options, it's tough for the defense to stay with them. This was on that scattered play, and McCray knocking down the 3. And then because of penetration, there's the kick out again, the other look at it. And this is where penetration, and McCray almost traveled that time, but that's where Noel got sucked in, and that was a great find. And boy, you love those home rims, don't you?
I thought they calibrated those equally now.
3 straight 3-point baskets for Maryland. Gilchrist, McCray, Jones. That erases a lot of leads.
I think the fans now know that Maryland has been able to pretend that North Carolina was duped. 81-80, their first lead since 29-28 in the opening half.
First lead doesn't matter. Last lead matters.
Jawad Williams for 3. Bang.
Jawad Williams for 3.
How many big shots has that young man made in the last couple of weeks? You know, going into the Connecticut game, his numbers had really fallen off for about a 3 or 4 game period, Mike, and then he had an outstanding performance in Hartford in the non-conference win against the Huskies, who, by the way, are playing awfully well right now for Jim Calhoun, and he's just continued that torrid pace in the ACC.
He averaged 3 points a game in that stretch, Timmy, 15 since that over the last 4. And this is a shot, this time of game, that Rashad McCants may look for. Instead, they turn to the senior, and Jawad Williams has stepped up.
Something to remember as you look at the numbers on Jawad. Gary Williams had to call a number of timeouts early in the second half, so he's only got 1 timeout remaining.
We have 1 minute to play.
1 minute left. You have to figure that McCray or Jones are the most likely to touch it at the critical time. Of course, Gilchrist is always a factor. On the offensive glass, Maryland comes away with it. Tie ball, the arrow to the Terrapins. And that is important at this stage of the game. Kaner Medley to check in for Maryland. And Gist out.
Kaner Medley for James Gist.
For offensive for defensive substitution there. Jones comes away with it. A floater. Not there. Abekwe tipped it twice and got it to go down.
Wow, what a play by Abekwe. We've seen it a bunch in this half. Maryland's beaten North Carolina off the floor a couple of times, and he missed an easy point-blank tip, but then bailed himself out with a tough left-hander.
And by the way, they haven't had too many putback opportunities in this game.
And the whole thing starts when David Noel falls down, and Beckway might have gotten away with a push there and then just went back over the top of Sean May.
We knew going in, Mike, that Maryland would give their best effort tonight, that they just seemingly always respond to those titanic teams on their schedule. And there you see the remaining games for both clubs, and they're all very important at this stage for Maryland, trying to work their way into the NCAA tournament field.
North Carolina finishes out at home with those two games, and then the all-important season ender with Duke. But all Maryland, if you're in right now, you just need a stop. There's plenty of time left on the clock. They'll have 6 or so seconds coming back.
Capacity crowded Comcast Center, all on their feet. ACC Sunday Night Hoops coming down to Casey's.
I think if you're North Carolina, you take your first best shot and then trust your defense.
Felton all the way to the rack. Gary Williams in disbelief that he was able to get a layup.
His best scoring moves, Tim, are to his left hand, and he was able to run through some screens and get into the lane. Here he comes off the top, and just Kaner Medley gave up on the play. You've got to stay with Felton. And then Sean May seals off inside, so no shot blockers come in. And that was a great drive by Raymond Felton, but he had plenty of help.
How much more comfortable are you as a coach when you know that you've got that kid looking you eye to eye in the huddle at this stage of the game?
That's, Gary Williams, go back a couple of years when Stephen Blake was in that role.
Yep.
I mean, same situation. Hey, look at that. That's a great shot right there. Coach on the bench, coach on the floor.
Yeah, and by the way, with that most recent deuce, his first of this half, he has a double-double. He's dished out 10 on this Sunday night to go along with his 10 points. And with 18.9 remaining, Maryland with a chance to either send it to overtime or try to win it with a 3.
I think you got to trust Chris McCray. Let's see how North Carolina matches up, because they're going to have Noel and Manuel in on Mike Jones and McCray.
Lineup looks this way: Gilchrist, Kaner Medley, Jones, Beckway, and McCray. North Carolina with Manuel, Felton, Jawad Williams, David Noel, and Jawad Williams on the floor.
Conventional wisdom is you go for a tie at home and try to extend into overtime. Let's see if Maryland tries to take care of business right here.
Gilchrist on the drive, ball knocked away by Felton, out of bounds with 6.8 remaining. And another timeout, the final one taken by Gary Williams.
The Terrapins call timeout.
This is when scouting reports really come in and become the major factor at the end of any game.
Those baseline out of bounds plays, you focus in on them, and every team goes over them at shoot-arounds.
And you can't take a look at it and call a timeout even if you're Roy Williams now. No timeouts left for either club.
Timeout situation right there. So, the onus right now, you've got to have a solid guy taking the ball out of bounds, somebody who's got some poise and has that clock in his head.
Well, it's been said for many, many years, Mike, and North Carolina even warms up the way they did when Dean Smith was coaching many years ago, and Frank McGuire prior to that. If you think about it, sometimes the most difficult thing to do against a Tar Heels team is get the ball inbound.
Yep.
That pretty much says it all. Win now, and we get to dance later. The fans are very well aware of how important to win against a top team, second in the country, and in the RPI, what it would do for Maryland with a win.
For Maryland right now, aside from getting the ball in, ball screening and their action and getting people open is the most important thing.
Jones driving to the basket, pass Manuel, rejected by May. That should do it. North Carolina Carolina wins. What a huge win for Roy Williams and company, and he would be most proud that they did it with defense.
Well, I tell you what, Sean May was an absolute man in this game. He owned the paint. Double-double, points, rebounds, blocks, and none bigger than the one in the last play. Now, you got to give Mike Jones credit to try to force the action a little bit, make a play going to the rim and involve the referees. But, boy, this was just a great help side defensive play by Sean May, cutting off the ankle and then keeping it in bounds to Tim, not letting Maryland get control of the basketball and have a second chance.
He had 22 points, Mike, 11 rebounds, 3 blocks, and the last one really saved potential overtime, if not the game.
Like I said, you know, to me, first team all ACC. No question about it. And a terrific effort for him. And again, making that type of play last year at the end of the game, I don't know if he could have done it, but in so much better shape and condition now. Very active, very athletic.
Roy Williams there, you saw him congratulating, I believe, Mike Lonergan, the assistant coach for Maryland. He's gotten a head coaching job at the Division 1A level. Here's that play again.
Jackie Manuel keeps him on his hip, drives him right into Sean May and the big fella protecting the basket.
And it was Raymond Felton's layup with 18.9 remaining that turns out to be the eventual game winner. And the updated standings have North Carolina at 12-2, 24-3 overall. A definite #1 seed in the upcoming NCAA tournament, regardless of what happens the rest of the way. For Mike Cheminsky, Tim Brand.